Newsrooms, digital media is hurting badly. Can't even tell you how bad it's getting right now, but take a look what the list is right here from pointer.com, the Pointer Institute. They tell you exactly how it's bad. Look at this. This is a current list they have right now. So you have a Seattle newspaper called The Stranger. They suspended print, laid off 18 staffers. Portland, Oregon, the Mercury newspaper announced it was temporarily cutting print. 10 staffers that have been laid off. Tampa Bay Times, 11 journalists laid off, and eliminating 5 days of print as of March 30th, and furloughing some newsroom staff. That's a big paper right there. Then you got more going in here. Orlando Weekly laying off 13 people. Look at all these newspapers. Look at the list right here. It's tremendous. So bad. You got the Philadelphia Record, Appeal Democrat in Marysville, California. Tribune Publishing, which puts out a lot of different papers. Chicago Tribune, New York Daily News, Baltimore Sun. They had furloughs, permanent pay cuts between 2 and 10%, and executives taking pay cuts. So much here. Just so bad. And look at the list. New York Post, layoffs and furloughs. I mean, that's just a long-ass list. And TV hurting as well. There you go. Univision, layoffs, furloughs, pay cuts. NBC Universal cutting executive pay by 20%. Then you have radio, which radio is just a rough spot right now. So GVC Broadcasting, furloughing employees. iHeartMedia, furloughing and pay cuts. Then you have Town Square Media. Then you got all these different companies. These are a lot of companies. NPR, 14 people, voluntary buyouts, voluntary furloughs as well. So bad. And the digital media is what we're going to focus on right here. The worst. BuzzFeed cutting employee pay, cutting AM to DM, its morning news show. 8 people getting let go. Furloughs of some staff. Vice cutting pay, stopping 401k matching and promotions. Bustle laying off 24 staffers. Geo Media, which was usually Gizmodo Media, or formerly Gizmodo Media, which owns Jezebel, Deadspin, The Root, and The Onion, laying off 14 employees. Jesus, man. Vox furloughing more than 100 people for 3 months. Quartz laying off 80 employees, and Vice will lay off 55 people in the U.S. and 100 outside the U.S. Let's talk about those last couple right there as we look at the article here. So the story is that Vice, Quartz, The Economist, BuzzFeed, Condé Nast, they're all making cuts. So hundreds of journalism jobs, primarily though not exclusively at digital media outlets, were cut, piling upon thousands of other media job losses that have accelerated. And here's what we got. Kerry Flynn on Twitter writes down, Condé Nast, 100 layoffs, 100 furloughs. BuzzFeed, 20 furloughs. Quartz, we just mentioned 80. Vice, total of 155 layoffs. The Economist, 90 layoffs. Then you got more. Quartz and the Vice, voluntary buyouts at NPR, so bad. Ben Smith, who used to run BuzzFeed, says that this is usually an unusually blunt explanation and longer treats digital as a fast-growing future, just another business line. So Ben Smith wrote on here, says, the reality is that some decisions had to be primarily around our digital teams. And as advice, he says, currently digital accounts for 50% of our headcount costs, but only brings in 20% of revenue. So they need to look into the long-term health of the company. That's what they're talking about. There's so much going on here and all these jobs. I mean, you're wondering what are the reasons for all these jobs going away and why all these people are being let go. Well, first of all, they've all figured out that they can't put paywalls up. Nobody's going to buy their content because part of the content they have is salacious and clickbait. There's not enough investigative reporting, not enough tangible grasp, investigative, real who, what, when, where, and why reporting. And when people are not going to get that kind of information from you, then that's what happens. They'll go away. BuzzFeed right now, getting rid of their UK and Australia bureaus. That's what's going to happen. When you're putting out fluff, when you're putting out sensational yellow journalism, content that doesn't really serve anybody's purpose, does not serve the public in a proper way, then you can't do like the New York Times or the Washington Post or the Wall Street Journal and others, where you can go ahead and charge a price for your content, billboard, Adweek, whatever. You can't be able to charge a price. And that's a big problem. But then the thing is, that's the point. You've got to be able to go and make content that's worth buying. And if you're just free and you're just putting up some content that's just pure clickbait, that you're just reporting off some Twitter feeds, like even this story right here, they're taking Twitter feeds as their commentary. They didn't ask questions. They didn't get on the phone and bang the phones and start quoting people. They took quotes from Twitter because it's now so lazy to do. It's so easy to do. That's what's so common these days. And that's what a big problem is. So why do we need to have bloggers and people out there that get a lot of money, let them get unionized on top of that, just to make them get nothing from it? These are the kind of problems we have. This is a big problem. The Guardian also is going to furlough staff. They said that furlough staff are highly unlikely to return. Economist, they got 1,300 employees. They just took out 90. That's a big chunk. There's more. I mean, look at this. These are all people that are either let go or just give reports about all the carnage that's going on with all this. Condé Nast is a huge magazine conglomerate. Now, they were known as a Vogue company. They own Wired, GQ, Architectural Digest, Teen Vogue, and The New Yorker. They've laid off 100 staffers and furloughed another 100. They're providing severance packages to laid off employees and will cover healthcare premiums for those who have been furloughed. At the start of 2020, Condé Nast had 6,000 employees worldwide. And there might be more cuts to come because they're not making the kind of money they need to make. And that's a big problem. And this is something that's got to be said about journalism in general. Part of this is because of the result of what is not being done in journalism anymore. And citizen journalism is becoming the new place to be. And local journalism is the place to be. And people are just following, Twitter feeds or Instagram feeds or wherever. The people are not following along and going to the sites anymore. They don't want to go on their screen when they're clickbaited. It doesn't matter how much SEO you put into a story to get people to go and follow it if you know it's going to be bullshit. And some of these outlets are not figuring that out. And it took a pandemic when things were already going so bad for some of these companies because they're not making the kind of ad revenue. They don't have circulation. Newspapers are getting decimated right now, badly. We saw the list. And I'll give you a link to both of these stories so you can actually take a look for yourself. But I feel bad for these people. I got the right for myself, and it's not a good situation. So I don't know what's going to happen next for them. But again, this is where it's more important than ever. Not so much about the staffing, but the content. Content is king. And I talk about it on my Broadcasters podcast. The control of your content is in your hands. And for you to continue to keep cashing in on that content, you have to have proper control of it. And you got to be doing it the right way. No more clickbait. We got to get rid of clickbait.